Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us today because we are going on a seriously fascinating journey back in time. We're heading into ancient Karnataka to explore a ruling family that literally shaped the cultural bedrock of the region. Today, we're unpacking the story of the Kadambas. Now, they weren't just another royal house, they were the first truly indigenous Kannada dynasty. It's this incredible mix of rich mythology, brilliant statecraft, and a lasting cultural legacy that you can still feel today. We're going to explore exactly how they built an empire completely from the ground up. Every great empire needs a great origin story. And I have to say, the Kadambas have one of the most striking foundational myths I've ever come across. According to the ancient Puranas, the founder of this family didn't just inherit a throne the normal way. No, he was born directly from the divine. Legend actually says that a fierce warrior, born with 3 eyes and 4 arms, emerged from a single drop of sweat that fell straight from the forehead of god Shiva onto the earth. And where did this incredible multi-armed figure land? Right under a sacred kadamba tree. It's such a wonderfully vivid image, full of mystique, and it brilliantly ties their earthly authority straight to divine origins. What really illustrates the depth of this history is how the name Kadamba itself bridges that Puranic myth with classical history. The term actually refers to a sacred guardian tree, but it's not just some symbol plucked out of thin air, it's deeply rooted in the historical record. If you look at classical Tamil Sangam literature, like the famous ancient epic the Silapathikaram, there are these vivid descriptions of frequent, intense clashes between early Chera kings and a group of people fiercely dedicated to preserving the Kadamba as their guardian tree. Honestly, it's incredibly reasonable to assume that these very people defending their tree in those Tamil epics are the exact same Kadambas of Banavasi we are exploring right now. Well, that brings us to a really fascinating pivot point. We've got epic tales of 3-eyed warriors, drops of divine sweat, and battles over sacred trees. But who were the real Kadambas? Let's step beyond the legends for a second and dig into the concrete historical reality. How do they rise from being local figures to holding ultimate power? And what do they actually accomplish on the ground? Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with Born from a God's Sweat, then move to the first Kannada dynasty. Next up is Forging an Empire, followed by the Golden Age, and finally, Language, Coins, and Legacy. Let's get right into it. Part 1. Born from a God's Sweat. Moving right along to Part 2, the first Kannada dynasty. Okay, so to truly understand the Kadambas, we have to understand their home base, the ancient city of Banavasi. Interestingly enough, the ancient geographer Ptolemy actually referred to a trinetra, or 3-eyed, Kadamba ruling here. That shows us how early historical accounts perfectly align with the myth we just talked about. These rulers were actively associating themselves with Shiva to legitimize their command. Now, Banavasi was an incredibly important religious and political hub long before the Kadambas took over. Just looking at the timeline, by the 2nd century, inscriptions show Banavasi was securely part of the massive Satavahana territories. Later, it became the celebrated capital city for the Chudu dynasty. It actually isn't until around the year 350 CE that the Kadamba dynasty makes its first appearance on the historical stage. And initially, their control was pretty limited, basically just extending to the immediate area around Banavasi in northwestern Karnataka. Which brings us to Part 3, Forging an Empire. Going from local rulers to an empire that controls all of northern Karnataka and the Konkan? Yeah, that was not a peaceful transition at all. 2 crucial early figures really stand out in this turbulent era, Mayura Sharma and Ravavarma. The founder, Mayura Sharma, is a totally fascinating character. Believe it or not, he was initially the commander-in-chief of the rival Pallava forces. But he rebelled, broke away, and established independent Kadamba rule, eventually conquering parts of the Deccan through sheer military force. But, as history shows us time and time again, empires are incredibly hard to hold on to. Later rulers suffered severe territorial fragmentation in these constant, draining internal family feuds. And that is exactly where Ravavarma steps in as the great consolidator. Despite dealing with intense family infighting, he somehow managed to successfully hold the kingdom together, and even extended it through fierce clashes with surrounding powers like the Gangas and the Pallavas. And now, Part 4, the Golden Age. Once those borders were finally secured, the foundational administrative structures really began solidifying, which set the stage for unparalleled prosperity. The ruler who absolutely brought the empire to the absolute height of its renown was King Kakusavarma. Under him, Kadamba power peaked. And the coolest part? He didn't just rely on the sword. He was an absolute master of statecraft. He utilized strategic marriage alliances to build this complex web of diplomatic ties that secured the borders from foreign invasion. And because he established widespread peace through these alliances, he could turn his attention and his kingdom's massive resources inward. We're talking commissioning major building works, elevating infrastructure, and kicking off unprecedented economic prosperity. You see, Kakushtavarma's external strategy directly fueled all that internal prosperity. Externally, the Kadambas were contemporaries of the powerful Western Ganga dynasty, but instead of engaging in constant resource-draining warfare, they teamed up and formed the Kadamba-Ganga nexus. Together, they stood as the earliest native kingdoms to rule the land with true shared autonomy. And the economic payoff of this alliance was just massive. It led to the evolution of a major wealth-generating trade route spanning all the way from Banavasi to Kare, passing straight through the Bor area. Peace abroad literally meant incredible wealth at home, establishing a level of stability that would echo for generations. Finally, Part 5, Language, Coins, and Legacy. Because their political and economic supremacy allowed the Kadambas to make such a lasting cultural impact, we don't just have to guess about their influence. We have hard, tangible archaeological proof of their vibrant empire. We've got the famous Halmidi inscription, the Mawali epigraphs, which, by the way, are located right along that major trade route we just discussed, indigenous copper coinage, and of course, the rich historical accounts preserved in Tamil Sangam literature. These artifacts firmly anchor the grand stories of their golden age squarely in reality. If you remember just one thing from this explainer, let it be this crucial takeaway. The Kadambas were the very first indigenous dynasty to use Kannada, literally the language of the soil, at a formal administrative level. Before them, official state records and royal decrees were almost exclusively written in Sanskrit or Prakrit. By elevating the local, spoken language of everyday people to the prestigious language of the state, they fundamentally preserved and validated the Kannada identity in a way no one ever had before. It was a real game changer. The absolute most famous piece of evidence for this momentous shift is the Halmidi inscription. This artifact is just incredibly significant. It is the oldest known Kannada language inscription ever found, meticulously carved in the Kadamba script. And historical analysis ties this groundbreaking record directly to our Golden Age ruler, King Kakustavarma. It proves that his legacy wasn't just in peace and trade, but literally in the language itself. Oh, and their administrative might wasn't just carved into stone. The Kadambas actually minted their own coins. In the ancient world, that is a massive flex of independent power and economic sovereignty. A 5th century copper coin was discovered right in Banavasi, and it boldly features a Kannada script inscription. This numismatic evidence is so thrilling because it strongly indicates the Kadambas operated their very own independent mint, pumping out local coins right from their capital to fuel those booming trade routes. So from a divine drop of sweat, to a sprawling kingdom, to the ultimate preservation of the language of the soil. It really makes you stop and think, how much of our modern cultural identity is actually rooted in the everyday administrative decisions of these ancient empires? The Kadambas weren't just ruling over land, they were elevating a culture that thrives to this very day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this explainer. I really hope you found this deep dive into Karnataka's first great dynasty as fascinating as I do. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.